Hey everybody! So sorry about the lighting. It's really dark out right now. I'm trying to do my best here. I'm underneath a street light here near my house, and I want to share something really cool. I think Portland's doing really right. And if you can see behind me there, this blue light, this is actually a restroom. And it's a really cool thing. This is a public bathroom. It's not finished yet, so I can't show you the inside because they're just putting this in here. But we have these all over town, and they're really cool. It's a public restroom. It is cleaned regularly. They're maintained very well, actually, and they are for people who can't get to a restroom normally. So a lot of the homeless people in town use them. For those of us who go for long walks, we use them. This one is in a park that they're renovating. But it's a really cool thing. They're actually called the Portland Loos because this particular design was actually made for Portland. We're the first city to do this particular idea. They're single stall bathrooms, and the bottom, like probably 2 feet, is an open grate. You can't really see in because of how the slats on it are, but you can tell if somebody is like sleeping in there, for instance. So like we can make sure that people aren't using it as a shelter and making it so other people can't use it as a bathroom. But I've used them many times when I'm downtown. I'm really excited to see they're putting one in here. We've got a big problem here in Portland on homelessness. And a lot of that is because housing is so expensive here. For instance, me and my husband are not in the best area of town. We're in a grocery desert. If we didn't have a car, it would take us over an hour to get groceries. The only place that my husband can get to, because he doesn't drive, is the plaid pantry that's on the corner. It's like a 7-Eleven or a corner market. And they don't have the best options for food. There's no real fresh fruit or vegetables. There's just like your ready to go meal kind of things, and they're more expensive than a grocery store. So it's really difficult living in a place like this, and we have a problem in this area as well. Like there have been multiple shootings, that kind of thing. And we pay almost $800 a month, and we're $100 cheaper than they're currently renting the equivalent of our apartment for. And so our rent is going to go up, and we're not going to be able to afford it. And we are probably the cheapest apartment that I've seen listed at all. So like the average house price here right now is $400,000 for a house, which is ridiculous, and we don't have any like middle class jobs at all, really. And our city's not doing anything to help particularly. It's currently freezing cold out. I'm bundled up. I've got my hat and I've got a scarf in my bag. I've been walking, so I don't have the scarf on. But we've had to open a couple of warming shelters right now because it has been below freezing, and it's supposed to be again here starting tomorrow. We have problems. We have big problems. We have problems where the apartment complexes are raising people's rent by over $100 a month, and rent is so high everywhere that people like me can't afford to move. And I'm like the well-off side of poor. I have a good job. I work part-time because of my health. Doesn't really let me work more. I get really sick when I work 40 hours a week, as I found out the hard way. So I work 20 hours a week. My husband also has a job. He works 40 hours a week. And we both make significantly more than minimum wage. And it doesn't matter. We live paycheck to paycheck. Whenever something comes up, we can't afford to pay bills. I use a local food bank sometimes to try to get us enough food, and with my health concerns, it's not really possible. I have huge dietary restrictions because a lot of foods make me very ill. And my husband is very similar in that he's got Morfan's syndrome and has gotten sicker and sicker as time goes on. So it's been hard, and we're the privileged side of poor. We have a safety net. My parents help us. I can call my parents if I need to, and a lot of people don't have that option. So we have a lot of people who are homeless, who are sleeping on the streets or in shelters or crashing on friends' couches or have been forced to live with their parents. I have a good friend who her and her husband can't afford their mortgage anymore, so they've had to sell their house and are now living in a 2-bedroom apartment with another couple, and they still can barely afford it. If we were to try to move, we don't qualify for anything, because almost every apartment complex requires you to have 3 times the rent in wages. And when the rent is $1,000 a month, you can't do that. Like, it's not possible. We're two people. I have a college education. I'm working in a job that requires a degree and still can't afford it. I bring this up, the Portland Loos reminded me of like why Portland has been doing this, and it's great. It's a nice step, but it's a gesture. And Portland and many other cities here in the US are not doing enough. We have a group here in Portland now called Portland Tenants United. That's actually a union of people who rent. And they're fighting these huge rent increases. We had one apartment complex downtown recently that had a rent raise of over $150 a month. And that's ridiculous. Nobody can afford that. Like, my rent on the cheaper side is almost what one of my good friends on the opposite side of town, like out in the boondocks, pays for his mortgage. For his mortgage. But we can't afford a house. We can't afford a down payment. Like, we're stuck. And there's not a lot of options to make more money. I mean, I in a few months' time, I'm going to have a second college degree. And I still don't have many options that would get me more than I'm making right now. And there are a lot of people a lot worse off than I am. We need to do something about this. It's ridiculous. Like, we shouldn't have these problems. I mean, how are people supposed to try to better their situation when their first priority is just survival? Like, if you have to worry about where you're gonna sleep tonight and if you're gonna be warm enough and if somebody's gonna steal your belongings, what few belongings you have, like, if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, like, how can you expect somebody in that situation to be able to work, to succeed? Like, we have a lot of people who work full-time jobs but still can't afford to live anywhere stable. And it's terrible. It's ridiculous. Like, that should not be a thing. And people push back against trying to raise the minimum wage and try to have solutions for unemployment, for homelessness, for people like me who live paycheck to paycheck because rent is so high. And people are fighting against it. It's like, people, don't you realize you are fighting against people's basic survival? Like they say, if you just work hard enough. You know what? I know a lot of people who are homeless who work their fucking asses off. Who work 40 hours a week trying to just survive. I have a coworker who works 2 40-hour-a-week full-time jobs, has 2 children, and still barely makes ends meet. Because she's a single mom. And with her and 2 small children, they there's not a lot of options for where they can live. Like, she was telling me yesterday, she only sees her daughter 2 nights a week if she's lucky. 2 nights a week to see her own child, because she has to work 2 full-time jobs just to be able to live. That's not okay. Like, we're spending money on like these public restrooms, and that's great, because we need them. We need public restroom options, because more and more businesses are saying you can't use our restroom unless you pay for something. And you can't afford that if you're homeless, if you're living hand to mouth. Like, who can afford that? Like, I'm sorry, I can't go down to Starbucks and buy a coffee on a regular basis. It's just not possible. Like, what are people supposed to do? We need solutions, not band-aids. We need to actually help people. We need to care about each other. We need to talk to each other. I've made some amazing friends and met some amazing people because I talk to people. I don't care if you're homeless. I don't care what race you are. I don't care about your criminal background. Like, I have a very good friend that lives, I say lives, it's not right. He's homeless. He lives in a like pay by the day hotel when it's cold like this. And he can't work because he's disabled, and they've delayed his disability check until April. And so he sits on campus with a sign that says, disabled, unable to work, anything helps. Just to get enough money to pay for his room for the night so he can sleep somewhere warm and dry. And yeah, he's a felon. Yeah, he's a former gangbanger. But he is one of the nicest, sweetest, most kind and caring people that I have ever met. He's a genuinely good person. Think about that. If I went by the stereotype, I wouldn't have come near him with a 10-foot pole. Like, the stereotype says he should be the person that I am afraid of. But fear doesn't help. It really doesn't. Yeah, you need to, like, be careful. But there's a difference between being careful and ostracizing people because they're different, because they have a history that you've been told over and over to be scared of. Like, no. You know what? The homeless guy on the block down the street, on the street corner, asking for change, might not smell very good. Might not be in clean clothes. He might not have the best education, so he might not say things in a way you think is polite. But that doesn't mean that you should be scared of him. That doesn't mean that you should be rude or ignore him or treat him like he's not a person. He's a human being. How is he supposed to have clean clothes and have bathed today when he doesn't have a place to live? When he doesn't have access to a shower or a washing machine? Think about that. Like, we treat people who are homeless, who are poor, like they did this to themselves. Like they are bad people. Like they're not human. And that's not okay. Poor people are human, and there are a lot of us. And pushing against options that would help people out of poverty, would help people have a home, have food, not have to be scared that someone's gonna take what little they have? Like, why are people against that? It doesn't make sense. It's just fear and hatred, and it's not okay. Please, guys, just be kind to each other. Even if you don't have time to stop and chat with the guy asking you for change, smile and say, "I'm sorry, I don't have anything." Like, be polite. Treat people like they're people. Do something kind for someone else that you don't ask for adulation for. You see somebody sitting on a street corner with a sign that says anything helps. Ask if they need a pair of gloves or a hat or a scarf. You can get it at the dollar store and it would help. Or a new pair of socks. Or for the women, ask if they need tampons or a pad. Simple things. You probably, the women out there probably have a couple of tampons in their purse that they could give. You know how hard it is to get sanitary supplies when you're homeless? That shit's expensive. And most of the time you can't get that from the local homeless shelter because they just don't have enough. These small acts of kindness go a long way. Somebody who's struggling, just even if you don't have a penny to give, something as simple as a smile and a hello goes a long way. We need to stop treating people like they're nothing, like they're not human. So, I'm sorry, this became a bit of a rant, and I really just wanted to show you the Portland Loos and tell you a little bit about it, but it's a part of the conversation. And I'm not ever gonna say that having clean and accessible public toilets is a bad thing. Because it's not. It's a great thing. We need them. The public toilet has been disappearing and it's making life harder for a lot of people. But there's more that we need to do than providing a clean and safe place to go pee. I thank you for listening to this, and if you can, please go out there and do something nice for someone. Don't assume what they need. Ask. But the offer, the kind word, the smile, it makes every difference in the world. Like, I can't stress that enough. Just treat people like they're people, and you would be amazed at what comes out of it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and just be nice to each other. Mwah. Bye, everybody.